Hello and welcome to Surveyor Says, the podcast from the National Society of Professional Surveyors. Today we bring you another installment of Future Focus, our series centered on those young individuals who are making a difference in the surveying profession. Our guest today is Kyle Schultze, a licensed surveyor from Illinois. Kyle will be serving as the Surveying Merit Badge Coordinator for the 2021 Boy Scout Jamboree, held every 4 years in West Virginia. NSPS Executive Director Curt Sumner recently sat down with Kyle to discuss all the work, time, and support that goes into a typical jamboree. They discussed the goals of the Merit Badge team, which include not just the fundamentals, but to also touch onto some of the high-tech equipment used by today's professionals. Settle back and enjoy listening to the ins and outs of the Boy Scout Jamboree on this Future Focus episode of Surveyor Says.
Welcome to Surveyor Says, the NSPS podcast series. I'm Curt Sumner, your host tonight, and with me is Kyle Schultze, who is currently, I will describe him as our lead person for our Boy Scouts efforts nationally, and in particular at the Boy Scouts Jamboree. For those who are listening, who know anything about the Boy Scouts and the Jamboree, you know that it's a 4-year cycle. And 2021 is one of those years. The last few years, the event, or the last few cycles, the event has been held out in West Virginia. That's what's known as the Bechtel site. Unfortunately, I have not made it out there yet. Every year, I think I'm going to get to go out and at least visit, but something always happens, and maybe it's because I look at how long that drive is, and I'm getting older, and I'm thinking, well, maybe I won't make that drive. but I do want to get out there and at least visit if I can't participate. But welcome to the podcast today, Kyle. I appreciate you being with me.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
One of the things that we want to talk about, we want to share with our audience what happens at the Jamboree, how it all works, but we also want to share the fact that we always need more people to help us. And Kyle can talk about that. He and I both have spent time in those booths, and we know what it's like to be understaffed. And I know back in the ancient days when I was there, we seemed to never have enough people, although we had a lot of people. So I don't know if that's still true, but nonetheless, we really hope that some of the people listening will have an interest in participating and going and spending time. And Kyle's going to tell you what that entails. And maybe that'd be a good way to start, Kyle, would be maybe give a little background on how you got involved, and then help our audience understand what actually takes place as you get involved in being part of this team.
Okay. Well, I guess for me, going farther back, I actually got into surveying based on the Surveying Merit Badge. I did the Merit Badge at Parkland College here in Champaign right before I aged out of Scouts. I got some pressure to come do the first Merit Badge that they were offering there. And so I went and I did it, and I really enjoyed it, had a good time. I ended up then proceeding to go to Parkland and working my way through their associate's degree in surveying, and then I went to Southern Illinois University in Carbondale, did my bachelor's there, and then shortly after I got done with school, I made the comment to Todd Horton, who was the director at the time and has been around for a very long time, that, maybe I'd like to help out and teach. And I got a call from him about 6 months later. Hey, I got a position open if you'd like to try. And so I've been teaching part-time at Parkland ever since. Which that's a whole nother story that we won't get into, but throughout that whole time, I'd been helping out with the Surveying Merit Badge at Parkland, And then I had been active in Boy Scouts for many years, and I had attended the 2001 and 2005 jamborees at Fort A.P. Hill, and 2010, I guess too. It was all at Fort A.P. Hill, but I had attended the 2001 as a youth, the 2005 as a third assistant scoutmaster on a contingent, and I wanted to go again in 2010, but it didn't look like that was going to happen until I got a phone call from our IPLSA president saying, I talked to Todd and thought maybe he'd like to go to the jamboree. There's been a call for help, and he said no, but that you'd probably be interested. You'd been before and stuff. And so I said, yeah, sure, I'd love to go. And so I went in 2010 and was on staff for surveying out there. And I love going to the jamborees. So I just kind of kept making it happen. So I've also been to the 2013 and 2017 jamborees on surveying staff. And I even made it out there last year to visit for Worlds. I was not on staff, but so I've been to the new Summit Bechtel site, quite a few times. The event out there is really kind of unlike any other scout experience that you'll have. You go out there, and if you're a youth or a participant, you're in a troop of 40 people that are kind of from your area. Some of them might be from your home troop, and you kind of know these people, and then you go out there, and you all of a sudden are in a sea of 40 or 45,000 youth from all over the country, all over the world in some cases. And it's just an experience unlike any other to see the scouting spirit and everything that happens there. There was a big change though when I went to staff, because then you were with the adults and the people who were running the show, and it was really cool to get to know a lot of the older staff members a lot better, and to see how things kind of worked out there, and to get involved from that aspect as well. But and some of those staff members, I haven't seen them since 2010. They were in the first group, and I'm still in contact with them. Every once in a while, I've got one of the guys lives out in Oregon. We get on the phone. We'll talk for a couple of hours sometimes. There's a gentleman in Utah who actually has made it to some of the more recent jamborees. He stopped by our booth, and we chatted for half an hour, 45 minutes, and I stay in contact with those guys, and it's really neat to get to know them and spend a couple of weeks with them and kind of become a family. The great thing, like I say, about the jamboree is making those relationships and getting to know those people, and one of them is really local to me. I'm in Champaign, Illinois, in central Illinois, and he's down in St. Louis, so it's only like 3 hours, and we've gotten together several times and become really good friends, and we just pick up right where we left off last, and so that's been really good. It's a camaraderie, and I think it's there for the youth, and it's also there for the staff and the adults as well. It's an experience that you will never forget, and it goes by quickly, but like I say, you never forget.
I'm curious with all that's going on in the world, and I know that even, I guess the last time I was at AP Hill, we started using different kind of equipment than what we did before. Where we had, in the beginning, when I first started, it was really rudimentary equipment that we were having the kids use. And I'm just wondering is the interest level still pretty great? I mean, I assume it might be because the toys that you play with are a lot more cool now than the old ones were. But I know some people, when I talk about the merit badge in general, not just at the Jamboree, but in general, people will say, like, kids aren't interested in that anymore. They're off doing other stuff. And so I think some people are questioning whether, and maybe you might even have some thoughts on, is that one in jeopardy, and if it is there anything we can do about
it? My understanding is, and I don't know what it's actually ranked at, but there's 150 merit badges roughly. They are ranked by, the top earned, one per year all the way down. And I think that surveying is in like the bottom 10 or 20. Most people don't realize it, but it is a original merit badge. There were 12 merit badges or 15 merit badges, something like that, that scouting began in 1910. Merit badges started in 1912, and surveying is one of the very original merit badges that first came out there in 1912. And it's managed to survive. I think the numbers on it have probably always been low, but it seems like it is getting to the end, where it does run a risk of no longer being carried by the Boy Scouts. And I think that's a shame. There's a lot of advantages to doing a merit badge like ours. You learn a lot, not only about surveying, but that there's a whole nother world out there that a lot of people don't realize exists. Most people think that we walk around door to door asking people questions, or standing in the mall asking questions, and it's simply not the case. And we get to do some pretty cool things with hydraulic surveys and different forensic surveying and aerial mapping, that sort of thing. And I don't think that people realize how important surveying is to our economy. So I would really like to see those numbers come up, and to get a lot of more people involved, whether that's in your local town or city or in your state. But most certainly at the Jamboree too. That's a great place for us to get some youth participation in the merit badge, and to get our surveying or merit badge out there so people can see it, and to help bump our numbers, even if it's every 4 years. I know that. Go ahead.
I was going to say, do you think, and I'm asking this question out of somewhat ignorance, do you think if there were a way to change the criteria that's in the manual to focus more on these modern technologies somehow? And I know doing that kind of thing and rewriting the manuals and all that is a big deal. But I'm just wondering, within the current structure, is there latitude to be able to make it more exciting for the kids, because they don't always get excited about if we just do it the old way, so to speak. Is that something that might be helpful to turn those numbers around a bit?
I think there's always improvements that can be made, right? So there are different things that we could probably look at that would bring interest in. As far as changing the requirements, I don't know how much of that you can really do, because the requirements as they sit now, there's the health and safety stuff that is in every merit badge. How do you do cuts and scrapes and hypothermia and heat stroke and snake bites and poisonous plants, and then there's a 5-sided traverse and running a level loop through everything. There's requirements about doing research at your county courthouse and writing a legal description and doing a few things along those lines. Just simple basics, right? The problem I see with including some kind of requirement with flashier technology, say drones, for example, you got to have somebody who knows drones, and there's a lot of people out there that do, but I certainly don't know drones that well that I'd be comfortable with it. And sometimes finding volunteers can be difficult. And so finding a volunteer who also knows drones or scanning or whatever, that could be challenging. That holds back people from earning it is that it is a serious time commitment, merit badge. You've got to have a good solid 8 hours in to get that traverse done and get your level loop run and different things like that. And that 8 hours is even after we've cut down the length of we do a small traverse around a parking lot at Parkland, and it still takes quite a while because you've got a lot of 11, 12, 13-year-old kids who are still trying to kind of figure out some basic coordination. They're trying to figure out some of the math behind it and different things, and it can be overwhelming. I teach young adults and even middle-aged adults at Parkland part-time, and they have a hard time figuring out how to set up an instrument the first time. So asking younger kids who've never laid a hand on anything at all remotely close to that, it can be challenging. Recently, National has made a request that people who are doing merit badges do not complete the entire merit badge because they don't want kids coming and spending an entire day doing merit badges. They want them to participate in the variety of offerings that are at the Jamboree. And I understand there's a lot of cool stuff out there, from rifles and shotguns to scuba diving. There's a man-made lake there that they've got paddle boarding and canoes and water obstacle courses, and there's all sorts of stuff, zip lining and canopy tours and mountain biking and BMX. I mean, they've got a little bit of everything if you want to do it. They've even got whitewater, and I think they've included ATV riding now. And so they want them to get out and do stuff. So for the Jamboree, kind of what we've decided the last couple of years, based on space constraints and timing constraints, if these kids don't finish it while they're there, they're not going to finish it when they go home. Generally speaking, it's just not going to happen. So based on that, we've taken some liberties with the merit badge, and we have simplified it down a little bit. They're still writing illegal. They're still looking at a common deed. They're still doing some sketching and learning about GPS and stuff like that. But, we've simplified the level work and the turning angles. So they get hands-on with the instruments, and they still do that stuff, but it's not quite as involved as doing a 5-sided traverse. And part of that's been staffing too. The last couple of times we've only had 3 or 4 people on staff, and you just can't handle kids all day, every day, trying to teach them how to do those setups and not lose your voice or get anywhere, with a group. So what I've done is reached out to Seiler Instrument, and for the next Jamboree, we're going to get a couple of Trimble robotics, 2 or 3 of them anyway. And so we're going to show them robotics as opposed to getting them directly on a conventional. That will be something that I think they'll find pretty interesting. I'd love to do something with a scanner, just scan the inside of the tent real quick in 5 minutes and then show them the final processing, or scan a portion of the Bechtel site and just show them what the scan data looks like. Just something quick in 10 or 15 minutes. But there again, you've got to have somebody with a scanner and somebody who can process that data quickly and efficiently, right? And I'm just not that person. I'm a construction layout and boundary guy, and I'm not too much into the other stuff. So I think there is definitely ways that we can make it a little flashier, but you've also got to have the people to do it. So if you make it a requirement, that makes it harder in some aspects to actually get it completed, I think.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah, well, that's very generous, Tyler. I wasn't aware that they were. Is this the first year they're doing that, or have they done it before?
They have not donated equipment before. Parkland has always donated equipment, partly with my affiliation there, and Todd Horton has always been big on promoting scouts. He was an Eagle Scout. He had a son who was an Eagle Scout, and so he's been a big push behind us doing it, and I'm sure Parkland is still going to provide some of our equipment, and we're very grateful to Parkland for that and all that they do. But yeah, this is the first time that Siler has volunteered a couple of robots, so I'm looking forward to messing around with those with the scouts.
Yeah, and those types of things, I think the kids will probably really think that's cool, obviously, because it's something different. So, and that makes sense that they would see it that way for sure. So what do you say?
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's all right. You go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say that they already think that a regular conventional is pretty interesting. Think about putting something in front of them that finds where you are and turns itself and all of that stuff, and then it becomes more of an animated object that you control with a remote, kind of like your RC truck, and I think that's gonna get some interest.
So I guess it's kind of hard to gauge depending on, I guess you look back at experience and the kind of things that you want to do at the upcoming Jamboree to get a feel for how many people we need.
I'd take 20 if we, easy. When the first time I went in 2010, we had 10 or 12 that were there for the entire 2 weeks. It's not quite 2 weeks. It's about nine or 10 days, and then there's a couple of days to set up prior and a day after before we can leave. So it ends up roughly being 2 weeks that staff is there, which I should mention, we don't have to have somebody there. Like, I'll be there the whole 2 weeks. There'll be some other people there that are there the whole 2 weeks, but you can also commit a week's worth of time. You can do like the first half of the Jamboree or the second half of the Jamboree. They've also got days where you could come in and work as day staff. So, you could come down, visit the Jamboree, help out at the booth for a day, and then the next day, come in and go sightseeing and see what the Jamboree is about, which we've had people do that in the past, especially at Fort A.P. Hill. Guy was a local, his son was there, and so he came and he helped us out for a couple days, and then he also went walking around with his son for a couple of days. So that worked out really good for him. But the last couple of times, there's, like I say, there's only been 3 or 4 of us, and we've been extremely limited in the amount of scouts that we can take, and we end up turning them away because we say to them, well, we just started a group of 6, and really that's all we can handle right now with this few people are there. And they say, oh, okay, well, we'll come back. Well, we don't see them come back, right? They find something else to do. It would be great to have, say, 4 stations, 5 stations where you spend 20 minutes at each station or 30 minutes at each station and just kind of cycle them through. So you say, well, we're going to start another group in 20 minutes. You guys can stick around and give us a couple hours of your time or 3 hours of your time, and then just walk them through the different steps. And then when they're done, they've got a merit badge. And so it would be great to be able to have 2 people per station, and that right there is 10 people.
Right.
And then you've got to have somebody who's taking information to a certain extent. We like to know where people are from. We have had people from all over the United States. We even had a group of 3 or 4 boys who were from Germany, and they were very interesting to talk to and get to know. And so we like to keep track of where they're from and how many people have come to our booth. So we try and keep track of that. And then you've got like the blue cards, and we always try and hand out some kind of swag, right? So NSPS in the past has given us can koozies and pencils and 6-inch scales for us to use, and Parkland's donated mugs and T-shirts in the past, and we try and hand those things out when they've completed the merit badge as well. So you've got to have some people who are handling that side of it too. And then of course there's always people who want to come up and talk to you. Oh yeah, I surveyed back when I was 15. The adults will come in and they'll want to talk to you, or what's this merit badge all about, and they have lots of questions. So somebody to kind of handle that, and all of a sudden you could have 15 people and really make a good go of things and make it a lot easier, so that everybody could have a day or 2 off a couple days off to enjoy the jamboree without having to work the whole time.
Right. And of course, getting people there and everybody who participates, I'm sure there's some level of fee to be part of the team. So I'm just trying to get a handle on, or to share with our audience, what we're talking about in terms of investment, because we need to find ways to be able to fund this without throwing all the responsibility on the people who are donating their time.
Right. And, I've been very fortunate the last several times that I've been sponsored by the IPLSA, the Illinois Professional Land Surveyors Association. They've generously donated my registration fees and mileage to get out there, and made sure that has happened. That's been their way of donating. The fee for the 2-week period is $895, I believe, if you're going to go for the entire 2 weeks. That includes everything. So you bring your personal gear, your clothes and your toiletries and that kind of thing, and then you're in a tent that provides for all of your food and everything along those lines, unless you want to hit up the pizzeria or a burger stand or whatever, but or buy a souvenir. But the $895 covers basically everything you need while you're there. If you want to go the 1 week route or the half route, there is a fee of like $495, I think, is something around that. And so and once again, that covers everything while you're there. So after that, it's what it's going to cost for you to drive out there or fly if you're coming from far away enough that you need to fly.
Well, that gives us some idea of what we're thinking about, and I think that the concept of and I know a lot of our state societies do contribute to the cause, if it's money or whatever, but that's maybe a good way for some of our groups to think about being a part of it and sponsoring one of their own people to go, rather than just give us money to sponsor whoever shows up. So that might be a good way. And I know for a fact, as do you, that there are a lot of people among us that have spent lots of times in and with the Scouts as they've grown up and then passed. So it seems to me that a large percentage of the surveyors I talk to have been involved in Scouts somewhere along the line. So the interest is there.
Yeah, that's a common theme that I've seen over the years, is you find that somebody has done some kind of surveying and been in Scouts. And we've had quite a few people who've come to the Jamboree doing a different staff position or being a troop leader, and they're a surveyor. They didn't even know that surveying merit badge was going to be at the Jamboree. So there's definitely a strong tie, I think, between Boy Scouts and land surveyors, but it's not always the best communicated tie, or well-known tie. And so, hopefully we get the word out there and we get lots of support.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. And that's, like I told you before, that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this, so we could have this podcast out there for people to listen to and get an idea. And then if they have questions, they can contact the office. And if we can't give them the answer, we can contact you and you can give them the answer. Not that I want to put a big burden on you, but at least if people are interested and have deeper questions or whatever, that we want to be able to answer those for them, and then also work toward helping to fund those things as well. Somebody mentioned to me a while back, we've had a lot of success at conferences with the sandbox. The sandbox that you move the sand around, and Tim Birch has one of those. You know what I'm talking about? It just sounds to me like maybe with the situation you have at Jamboree, that might be something to show them that's cool, but it wouldn't necessarily be part of the merit badge. It would just be something they could see.
Right, and it's interesting you mentioned that. The welcome center to the Jamboree site. So when the Scouts first show up, they have to check in at this welcome center, and the welcome center has an interactive one where when you shape the sand, it changes the intensity level of the overlay, and it's part of a display to show all of the work that went into changing the Bechtel site from an old coal mine into what you see today. And it's really interesting, the amount of work and effort that went into putting that place together in 3 years. And of course, it wasn't completely finished in 2013. I remember, Scouts are starting to show up and they're still planting trees and stuff like that, and rolling out sod and different things. They were definitely scrambling to get stuff as complete as they could. And the company that did the work actually had a little booth there, and they said that they had like 3 or 4 D10s with GPS machine control on them, working 24/7 for a good 18 months trying to get stuff into shape. So it's really interesting to know what went into that. And I think people get interested in that stuff, but they don't know, that there's surveyors behind it. And so that's
exactly
what we're going to show.
Yep, that's for sure. Well, I don't want to cut our conversation short, but I know that people don't know we're doing this in the evening instead of in the daytime. But I appreciate you spending the time with me. And I guess we've covered pretty much. There may be something else you want to bring up, but I did want to focus on the fact that it's important that we have people there. It's important that we have a way to fund those people being there. And it seems to me that from what you've talked about today, there should be a lot of people out there who are interested in doing this just for the experience. I would certainly hope so.
Yeah, and like you say, it's an experience unlike any other. One of the times I went, the volunteer that went with me had never done anything with Scouts, and all of a sudden he jumps into a jamboree with 40,000 youth and a total of 60,000 with the adults and everything, and for him it was kind of a striking. What do I want to say? It's he was very awestruck at what was going on. He found patch trading to be very interesting. He ended up patch trading. There was a pretty cool John Deere set of council patches and stuff, and I think we spent 2 or 3 evenings walking around so that he could collect all of those patches. And I think he found the the experience once in a lifetime, and he'd never done anything with Scouts. So even if you don't have experience with Scouts and you'd like to volunteer some time, you're more than welcome to come and help. Does it help? Maybe a little, but can you get by without it? Yeah, you completely can get by without it. Somebody like me who's done it several times can definitely help you walk through the steps and getting registered and all of those things. I should explain the dates. The official dates that youth will be there, they're talking July 21st through July 30th of next year. So 9 days that youth will be there. And then, like I say, typically staff shows up a few days ahead of time to kind of set up all their displays and run through the setup and the organization and kind of figure out how you want to go through with your event, depending on if you're in merit badges or whatever, and then typically leave after the Scouts leave right after that. And that's if you're doing the full thing, of course.
Right.
It's a very beautiful place. If you haven't been to that area of West Virginia, it's very beautiful out there. It's not as hot as it used to be in AP Hill. So it is a little more comfortable. And like I say, it's definitely something to go to and see everything that goes on. But I just would like to, say that we definitely could use the help in any capacity, whether you want to come for a day or half the week. We'll take whatever we can get. We just want to see the merit badge succeed and have things run as smoothly and offer it to as many Scouts as we possibly can while we're there.
Yeah, that's great. I can relate to that humidity. That Central Virginia humidity is a little different thing than up in a higher elevation in a place like the Bechtel site where you got a little wind blowing.
Yeah, I think 2005 we had a few stretches in there where it was 105 degrees. The index was like 115. Yeah. 2010 we had a few days that were almost that bad, and then the rest of the time was in the 90s. I think now that we've been at the summit, it's been low 90s as a high. So it's still warm, obviously, but it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, that humidity level certainly isn't there, that's for sure. And that's a big deal. Well, thanks again for being with me this evening. I really appreciate you taking the time, and we want to get this out so our members and others who may want to listen to our podcast can hear what it's about, and hopefully we'll gain some volunteers.
Yes, I hope that as well. I'm definitely open to anybody who wants to reach out to me, either to donate or to ask about volunteering in whatever capacity. Even if if you've got ties with a company, we're also looking for cool things to give out as swag gifts. So anything like that would be great. And if you can't make it to the Jamboree, keep it in mind as something you can volunteer in locally or at your state level, because there's very few merit badge clinics around. Like I say, I work at Parkland doing the Parkland one there, and I put out a flyer at a merit badge seminar local here in Champaign, and somehow it got on a Facebook group. Somebody had shared it, and all of a sudden I started getting requests from people who were 3 hours away in Wisconsin saying, are there spots available? I'd like to sign up, 3 boys from my troop. And we ended up having quite a few people who drove, 3-4 hours to come to the merit badge and participate in it. So there's always a need locally as well. Right. And I'm more than willing to help share information on how Parkland does it and how we do it at the Jamboree. If anybody is interested in any of the papers that we've put together on that, we do it where everybody gets a little book, and basically they can fill it out as they go through the different steps, and so they can write their legal in it, they can do their property sketch in it, they can write all their measurements down, and that's where they get to look at the recorded documents, and they get to see a plat and different things like that, and then they get to keep that book. So if anybody's interested in that kind of thing, I can always send that out too. So
great. Excellent. Well, thanks again. Have a great weekend, and we'll be having a lot more conversations over the next year, I'm sure.
Yes, I'm sure. So thanks for having me on.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much. Take care.
You too.
You've been listening to Future Focus and Curt's interview with Kyle Schultze here on the Surveyor Says podcast. We thank Kyle for his tireless efforts with the Boy Scout Jamborees and continued promotion of the Surveying Merit Badge. The Boy Scouts need volunteers for the surveying program next July in West Virginia, so consider participating and helping the next generation of surveyors. Upcoming episodes will include discussions in technologies, including UAVs and progress in pushing back on legato. Also, we will have more interviews with young surveyors, surveying educators, and spotlights on the various programs NSPS currently provides, including CST, TrigStar, and the Hydrographic Surveyor Certification. So, remember to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify, as well as our podcast host, Podbean. And watch our website, nsps.us.com, for information on future episodes. And remember, it's a great day to be a surveyor.